All right, let's jump right in. Today we're diving deep into a mix of news from Nigeria and around the world. We've got a stack of papers hot off the press: the Nation newspaper, Daily Post Nigeria, Daily Trust, Punch newspapers, Vanguard News, and for a global view, Al Jazeera. It's November 17th, 2024, so let's see what's making headlines.
It's like having different lenses. Each source gives us a unique perspective on what's happening.
Exactly, and we're going beyond the headlines today. We're looking for those hidden connections, those aha moments that link seemingly separate events. So, starting with the Nation newspaper, what jumped out at you?
Well, the Ondo governorship election is definitely a hot topic. It looks like incumbent Governor Aiyetiwa is holding a strong lead. He's won in most of the announced local government areas.
Aiyetiwa pulling ahead, that's big news. What do you think is driving this lead? Any insights from the articles?
The Nation newspaper suggests it's a few things. His policies seem to be resonating with voters, he's formed some strategic alliances, and his campaign has been very well organized.
So a mix of policy and campaigning, that makes sense. But wait, there's also this report from Yaga Africa. They're saying ballots are being sold during the election. And Yaga Africa is a well-respected election monitoring group in Nigeria, so their reports carry weight. This ballot selling allegation could really change things, couldn't it?
Absolutely. Allegations like this, if they're true, can really damage public trust in the whole democratic process. If people think their vote doesn't matter, their faith in the system weakens, and that's dangerous no matter who wins.
It's bigger than just one election. It's about the core of a working democracy. Okay, so we've got political drama unfolding in Ondo, but let's zoom out to the bigger economic picture in Nigeria. Daily Post Nigeria has a headline that I think a lot of people will be happy about. NNPCL, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, might step in to lower Dangote's petrol prices. Lower fuel prices, that's always good news. But how would this even work?
Well, it seems like NNPCL is being strategic. They're increasing their own crude production. Tompolo, a big name in the oil sector, mentioned a target of 2 million barrels per day. If they hit that target, the increased supply could push prices down, even for the big players like Dangote.
So flood the market and force the prices down. Clever. But then, we've got this from Daily Trust. The federal government is proposing to borrow a huge amount, in $13.8 trillion for the 2025 budget. So lower fuel prices on one hand, massive borrowing on the other. Isn't that a risky move?
It's a tough situation. Borrowing can be used to boost growth, investing in infrastructure, education, things like that. But of course, there's the risk of increasing the debt, which could have long-term consequences.
So it's a balancing act. And Punch newspapers adds another layer to this. They're reporting on tax reform bills being pushed by Oidel, a big name in finance. How do these reforms fit into the whole picture?
They could be a key part of the solution. If they're designed well and implemented properly, they could really increase government revenue. And that increased revenue can help manage the debt and fund those development projects we talked about. It's all about finding that balance between spending, borrowing, and earning.
Right, it's this intricate dance of economic forces, fuel prices, government borrowing, tax reforms. It's all connected, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Now, let's turn to a topic that's sadly always in the news: security. Punch newspapers is reporting on a chilling story. Gunmen abducted an NDLEA officer in Delta State. That's an officer from the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency.
It's a stark reminder of the security challenges Nigeria faces. Kidnapping has become a widespread problem. It affects everyone, regular people, and law enforcement.
Absolutely. But there is some good news. Daily Post Nigeria is reporting that 58 kidnapped victims were rescued in Kaduna. A successful joint security operation. That's a win worth celebrating.
It really is. It shows what can be achieved when different security agencies work together, pooling their resources and expertise. And for those 58 people and their families, it's life-changing.
It's a reminder that even with these challenges, there are people working hard to protect others. And speaking of evolving threats, Punch newspapers mentioned a group called Lukarawa terrorists operating in Sokoto and Bauchi states. What do we know about them?
Well, information is still coming out, but their emergence is worrying. Their presence in those states suggests they might be expanding our network, and that raises concerns about the changing nature of security threats in Nigeria.
So we're seeing successes, but also new threats appearing. It's a constantly shifting landscape. Now, for something a bit more uplifting, Vanguard News shared a story that I think will inspire a lot of people. Chidima Adachina has made history. She's the first runner-up in Miss Universe 2024.
It's a fantastic achievement. Her success on such a big stage shows her talent and hard work, and it reflects the spirit of Nigerian women.
This is huge. It reminds us that even with all the challenges, Nigerians are shining on the world stage. But, sadly, Punch newspaper has also brought up a stark contrast. Islamic scholars are raising concerns about gender-based violence, especially in northern Nigeria. It's a reminder that progress doesn't always reach everyone at the same pace.
You're right. We can celebrate achievements while also recognizing that there's still work to do. To address these deep-rooted societal issues, real progress means tackling these inequalities head-on and ensuring that everyone has the chance to thrive.
Okay, that's a lot to take in just from the Nigerian news. Ready for a quick jump over to the international scene?
Let's do it. What have you got? Welcome back to our deep dive. It's amazing how much we've already covered, and we're just getting started.
Right. Now let's switch gears and look at the political landscape. The Nation newspaper reported on the appointment of Daniel Bwala as special advisor to President Tinubu. It seems like this move has sparked some controversy.
Definitely. Senator Ndum, a prominent figure in the ruling party, was very positive about it. He praised President Tinubu for his large heart. But Daily Trust highlighted a different view. Some are calling for Bwala to apologize to Vice President Shettima. This situation really shows how delicate the balance of power is within the government. Even something like a routine appointment can become a big political issue.
Yeah, and it emphasizes how important communication and reconciliation are in politics. Okay, moving on to another interesting development. Daily Trust reported on Senator Adiola's suggestion. He's proposing alternatives to PVCs, those permanent voter cards, for identification during elections. He thinks using NIN, the National Identification Number, and passports could prevent people from being disenfranchised. What are your thoughts on that?
It's an interesting idea, worth exploring for sure. Expanding the types of ID could make voting easier, especially for those who have trouble getting or renewing their PVCs. But we need to think about the downsides too, you know? Security and the possibility of fraud are big concerns that need to be addressed.
Right, it's a trade-off. Accessibility versus security. Finding the right balance is key. Now let's focus on something that affects us all, business and finance. The Nation newspaper highlighted NMPCL's goal of producing 2 million barrels of crude oil per day. Topolo seemed pretty confident about reaching this target. If they do, what kind of impact could that have on the Nigerian economy?
Well, increased production like that could be a big boost. It could mean more revenue for the government, which could be used for development projects, infrastructure, maybe even reduce the need for borrowing.
So potentially good news for the economy. But the Nation newspaper also had a concerning statistic. They reported that N9 billion has been spent on fixing vandalized electricity installations just in the north. And Kano alone lost a massive N10 billion due to power outages. These blackouts seem to be a recurring problem with a huge cost.
It's a drain on the economy, no doubt, and a setback for development. These acts of vandalism show how vulnerable our infrastructure is. We need better security measures. But it's not just about security. We need to address the underlying causes too. Things like poverty, unemployment, lack of opportunities, these all contribute.
Addressing both the symptoms and the root causes, that's important. On a brighter note, the Nation newspaper showcased a really interesting project. Ned Kamokes Limited, a real estate company, unveiled a fully solar-powered estate. It seems like a big step towards sustainable living, especially with climate change being such a concern.
It's a great example of private companies leading the way in sustainability. We need to use more renewable energy sources like solar power if we want to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and tackle climate change. Projects like this can also inspire others, showing that sustainable development is possible and beneficial.
A win for the environment and the residents, that's great. Now, over in Kaduna State, Daily Trust reported on Governor Sani's plan. He wants to build 102 new schools, renovate existing ones, and bring 200,000 out-of-school children back into the education system. It's a huge undertaking, but with the potential for big results.
It's a bold move and a crucial investment in the future of Kaduna State. Education is so important for any society. Making sure all children have access to quality education, no matter their background, is essential for progress and development.
Couldn't agree more. Now, the Nation newspaper highlighted an initiative that got my attention. PIN, a real estate group, is educating people about the Police Act of 2020. Why is this particular act so important, and why is PIN taking on this role?
The Police Act of 2020 is a significant piece of legislation. It's meant to reform the Nigerian police force. It outlines citizens' rights when interacting with law enforcement. It sets guidelines for police behavior and has mechanisms for holding officers accountable. By teaching citizens about their rights and the law, PIN is empowering them. They'll be able to engage with the police in a more informed and empowered way.
That's fantastic. Promoting transparency, accountability, building trust between the police and the public, that's crucial. Now for a moment of reflection, let's step back from the hard news. The Nation newspaper reported on a commendation service held by the St. Charles Grammar School Old Boys Association. They honored the memory of the late Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taurid Lagbaja. It's heartwarming to see communities come together to celebrate those who serve their country.
It shows Lieutenant General Lagbaja's legacy and the impact he had. These tributes remind us of the importance of service, leadership, and human connection, even when facing loss.
A beautiful reminder that even with everything going on, there are stories of compassion and community. Back to business and finance, Vanguard News had an interesting report. Access Bank UK, a subsidiary of a Nigerian bank, is acquiring a Frisia Bank in Mauritius. This seems to be part of a growing trend, Nigerian financial institutions expanding their reach internationally.
This acquisition is a perfect example. Nigerian banks are showing their strength and ambition to compete globally. This kind of expansion can have positive effects back home, too. It can attract foreign investment and boost Nigeria's reputation in the global financial market.
It's a sign that Nigeria is becoming a bigger player on the world stage.
Absolutely, and it highlights the growing influence of African institutions in shaping global finance.
That's a great note to end this part of our deep dive on.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into today's news.
We've covered a lot of ground, elections, the economy, even some inspiring stories. Now let's shift our focus to some of the social and cultural stories shaping Nigeria.
It's in these stories that we often see the heart of a nation.
Absolutely, and Vanguard News had a story that really stood out to me. A police team refused a $100,000 bribe from an internet fraudster. In a country where we often hear about corruption, this is a powerful example of integrity.
It really is. It shows that honesty and upholding the law can win out, even when faced with a huge temptation. It speaks volumes about the people within the police force who are dedicated to justice and fighting corruption.
It gives us hope, a reminder that change is possible, even in systems where corruption might seem deeply rooted. Now let's address something that's on a lot of people's minds, the rising cost of living. Vanguard News captured the frustration many Nigerians are feeling. Some are even questioning if prayers alone can change things. The government, food prices, those ever-increasing fuel costs, it's a lot to bear.
It's a yearning for real solutions. While faith is important in Nigeria, many people are now demanding action from their leaders, effective policies to tackle these economic challenges. It's a call for accountability, a reminder that leadership needs to be more than just words. It needs to be about taking action to improve people's lives.
Bridging that gap between words and actions, that's crucial. Okay, shifting gears to the fight against insecurity. Daily Post Nigeria reported that Nuhu Ribadu, the National Security Advisor, handed over 58 rescued kidnapped victims to the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa. With all the news about kidnappings and violence, this is a victory worth celebrating.
Absolutely. Each person rescued is a win against those who want to spread terror. It's a testament to the bravery of the security forces who risk their lives to protect civilians.
It's a powerful reminder that even in difficult times, there are people who bring hope and resilience. Let's broaden our view a bit, turning to Al Jazeera for some international news. They reported on a development that's shaking Europe. Austria's gas supply from Russia has been cut off.
This has sent shockwaves through the continent. It exposes Europe's reliance on Russian energy and the fragility of global energy markets. It shows how interconnected we all are, how events in one place can have major consequences elsewhere.
A wake-up call for sure. We need to diversify our energy sources and work together internationally to ensure stability in these uncertain times. Wow, this deep dive has been quite a journey. From local elections to global energy politics, from economic worries to stories of human triumph.
So much information, but that's the power of staying informed. We can connect the dots, see the bigger picture, understand the forces shaping our world.
And that's what we aim to do here, to empower you, our listeners, with the knowledge and insights you need to navigate this complex world.
So as we wrap up, we encourage you to stay curious, keep asking questions, keep exploring. There are so many stories out there waiting to be discovered.
And if you want more deep dives like this, be sure to subscribe to Foresight News TV on YouTube. They have daily news coverage that will keep you informed and engaged.
A great resource for anyone who wants to stay ahead of the curve and understand what's happening in the world.
That's all for today's deep dive. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep diving deep.